Welcome to Live Breathe Film, episode 112. You're here with Doug and Murph. Thank you for joining us as we start this new era of the program. To those unaware, our third co-host, Corey, tragically passed away in late August. He'll be forever missed, and he'll always be part of the show as we carry it on in his absence. In fact, we're going to circle back to where we last left off after recording our last episode together when the three of us intended to officially crown our 2024 summer box office pool champion in our following episode after the last one we recorded. So while it may now be January 2025, it's time we belatedly recap the summer box office season and officially crown our winner. And then, as a friendly reminder before we begin, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to Live Breathe Film wherever you choose to listen to your favorite podcasts. We do appreciate your support. But Doug, let's go now right into our feature presentation that we intended to do back in September. And let's go over our summer box office draft recap. We'll start by going through the top 25 films of the summer from 25 to 1. Before we get to that, we'll go through the 5 films that you, me, and Corey each drafted that didn't make it into the top 25. And then just as a quick recap, the draft order back in, I guess it was late April or early May 2024 was myself with the number 1 pick. Doug, you had the number 2 pick, and Corey had the number 3 pick. And then after we go through the top 25, we will go through who got bronze, who got silver, and who got gold. Anyone kind of going through the order should be able to maybe figure it out themselves. But there was a stipulation with Deadpool and Wolverine, which made things very interesting when it came down to determining the winner. But Doug, if you'd like to start with the 5 films that the three of us selected, but didn't end up making the top 25 for the summer. All 3 of us had some. You can start with the one that grossed the least.
Sure. Yeah, so Horizon American Saga Chapter 2 grossed the least amount of money at $0 because it was pushed. This was picked by yours truly. It seemed smart at the time because Murph you had taken Horizon.
Yeah, you're hedging your bets.
Chapter 1. And so I was like, well, Horizon could do good, it could do really shitty, but regardless, if I take 2, if it does really good, it would only amp it up probably for Chapter 2 because people want to figure out what the hell happened. So this felt like a really smart move at the time. But it wasn't because it got pushed because the first one did so poorly. Which is something I didn't bank on. I thought Chapter 2 was going to come out kind of no matter what.
So did I.
But obviously that wasn't the case. They kind of they pivoted on strategy. I think, is it going to streaming or something?
No, and latest I've heard is potentially Netflix acquiring and then producing the 3rd and 4th one.
Okay. But yeah, no, this wound up being a really shitty pick for me. I outsmarted myself, I think, with this one.
It was smart it totally made sense. I was pissed at the time. I drafted part 1 way higher than I should have, and we'll get to that later. But I totally was going to go for part 2 with my last pick, so I was pissed when you got it. And then when it got put, but then simultaneously when the first movie did bad, I was like, okay, that's a good thing that I didn't take 2, but maybe people will catch up on it before part 2 comes out. But then they just pushed it, and it's January, and we still haven't heard anything. It was supposed to come out in August. So maybe it's going to go to Netflix, who knows? But yeah, it didn't work out for you. But it was a strategic move, and I admired you playing chess in that with this draft pick. Because you drafted it with your 23rd pick. So, or yes. Not your 23rd pick, but it was the 23rd pick in the draft. So it was your last round pick.
Right, which made it hurt a little bit less. But yeah, it's still, I think I thought I was playing 3D chess and I was playing checkers or some other Some
Pretend you know the expression we're talking about, and just
yeah.
make it applicable. Um,
All right. Well, that brings us to the next one, which, oh man, this is a good one. The Crow was made $9 million. Um, Corey obviously picked the Crow, and
Corey.
he picked that with his 21st pick, so or 21st pick. So that's
Yes.
not horrible. Um, but I think with the Crow, he was excited about this movie, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, man.
Well, he thought
Got in
it
his
had potential.
he got in his wraparound because he had the 21st and 22nd pick. So had no fault with like one of your last movies not getting drafted or not actually making it into the top 25 like it happens. But yeah, no, he was a little excited about the movie. He like dug the
The
original.
trailer I thought looked pretty good.
Yeah, by the time the movie came out though, like we were all like, okay, we're looking at a steaming pile. Like I believe it. Oh, we talked about the movie opening in our last episode that the three of us recorded when we were going
Okay.
over the summer box office. And I think at that point we had the Thursday preview numbers, and we're like, "Yep, Lionsgate has another bomb on their hands with this one."
Yeah, our
Um,
group chat, we were definitely talking about like, oh man,
yeah,
this does not look good, Corey.
yeah, and it did not perform. But it we would not have expected it to only have grossed 9 million. Any of us, I don't think, at the beginning of the summer.
Yeah, Corey's text was can't wait for the Crow to set things on fire with the $12 opening weekend.
Yeah, so I mean, we Corey was being very self
Deprecating.
deprecating with that pick as it got closer to its release. Um,
It sucks because I love Bill Skarsgård. I think
yeah,
he
and
does a lot of cool stuff, and
he's
he
got a
got to
big
be
hit
like
on
one
his
of
hands now. Corey did pick the right Bill Skarsgård movie in our fall draft, which we'll get to
yeah. But
in a later episode.
apparently, Bill Skarsgård has to be in a lot of makeup if the movie's going to be successful.
Yeah, they didn't make he wasn't pancaked up enough in The Crow like Brandon Lee. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like he didn't look anything like The Crow of the 1994 movie. So,
Oh well.
oh
Maybe
well,
next
now we
time,
know.
Bill.
Bill Skarsgård, pancake him up. Movie will make more money.
Not that he's like this guy that like is so hideous. He's got to be in a bunch of makeup, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe
No,
next time, Bill.
yeah, exactly.
All right. So that brings us to another. I mean, I knew this was a Corey pick without even looking at who picked it. Star Wars Episode One: The Phantom Menace. This is a re-release. It made 13 million, and Corey picked it with his 22nd pick, so still a late pick.
Yeah,
Um, I didn't perform all that bad with the 13 million. In comparison to maybe like the Avatar re-release, I think did pretty bad.
Avatar did better. Avatar's 20 something million.
Oh, okay.
It had a. We were very impressed by its opening weekend.
Okay.
It made nearly all its money on its opening weekend. I think it had one of the biggest drops of all time for a wide release. Like it dropped 80 something percent. I can pull up. Like it is a monster drop.
Yeah.
But I mean, we were busting Corey's balls so much about drafting this movie because like he's the re-release guy. Like, we always draft the re-releases.
Yeah. And we'll talk about it when we talk about our last start when we revisit our fall draft, summer
Yeah.
draft.
Oh,
Wait,
100%.
what were we fall
Our
draft?
fall
Yeah,
draft.
fall.
Yeah, it dropped
Uh,
83.5% in its second weekend. And
but yeah, this Corey continued his streak in this draft of drafting re-releases, and we might have busted his balls so much that he breaks this streak with our fall.
yeah, but I was like tickled pink when he did draft it. I was like, I put it on the sheet like just knowing like Corey, this one's for you. here's your re-release, and he totally got a kick at that point in time and continuing to draft these re-releases. Um,
Yeah.
you would
Oh
have thought
man.
after the previous pool we did, where he took Luca, Turning Red, and Soul, and all of them combined made about $3 million, that he would have been like, okay, enough. But this made 4 times as much as those 3 movies did. So
That's true.
over
That's
over
something.
4 times as much. So not bad. All right, what we got
All
next?
right. Next is Maxine. Maxine spelled with three X's. This one made $15 million. Murph, you picked this at 18. I remember when you picked it.
Yeah.
Um, I was surprised that you picked this movie because it didn't. It seemed like it wasn't going to make money. None of the other movies that in this trilogy have made money.
No, it did make the most though of the trilogy.
Um,
Um,
but I think you were just. I think you were kind of blinded by your own
yeah,
anticipation.
it was a heart over um, head pick. I was not thinking clearly. Uh, I thought there'd be some growth after because Pearl and X came out relatively soon to one another. Pearl really didn't get any promotion at the time. Um, I thought with the 2 years in between Pearl, X and Pearl and Maxine that there would have been growth. That this did look more mainstream than those 2 movies, with its '80s setting and with a much larger um, group of actors that are well known. But then those other
Hmm.
2 movies, but it didn't translate. Ultimately, it's a movie about porn, so you've got a handicap right there. Movies
It
just about
was,
like
but it
the movie
like
industry kind of have a cap. Then you throw it being like porn industry, it's like a mega handicap against it.
I thought it would be more porn forward than it actually was, considering like how much they like put in the movie about it.
Yeah,
But I understand that they probably wanted to keep it an R rating at the movie theater. Is probably
for
why it wasn't.
for sure. Um,
um, all right. Well, that
but
now
yeah,
takes us to it.
that was the A24 pick that I should not have picked. So yeah, go on to the next one.
Yeah. So the next one, another Corey pick. This one was Borderlands. This movie made $15 million, and Corey picked it with his 15th pick in the draft.
Yeah,
Um,
so around the time, I guess, right before I took Maxine, around that time.
yeah, and I get why he picked this, and I don't get why he picked this. I get why he picked it because it's a it's a it's like a property that's loved. There were some big name actors that were in this movie.
Dude, I could tell you 4 words why I picked it.
Okay, go for it.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Maybe he was hoping for another Five Nights at Freddy's type of effect. Um, the
None of us
reason
picked
why,
that, and that was the biggest blunder on any of our parts
yeah,
in any draft we've done so far. Well,
yeah, no,
yes, no, that was under no. Sound of Freedom. None of us drafted, but none of us were that was not anyone's radar. But Five Nights at Freddy's, that was inexcusable. One of us should have taken it.
yeah, I just didn't realize. I think that it's culturally like a younger generation. We
Yeah,
just didn't realize
yeah,
how
it
big
was
that property
not.
was.
Like, you are right. But yeah,
So
it
yeah, I
was
didn't
another
realize how much of a following it had. But yeah, I mean, Borderlands was just
another Lionsgate bomb of the summer of 2024.
yeah, and I mean that movie had just been in like that had been made for like a couple of years, right? And they kept like shelving it. It had all
Oh
these
yeah,
issues
there
and
was so much bad press
reshots.
about it.
So it that was what probably the reason why we were and the trailer looked like crap.
Yeah,
But that's probably why we stayed away from it. But yeah, I don't I get what Corey was going for, and um, there was something I picked that we're
I
going to
mean,
talk about
and it
next
wasn't
that
We didn't have the
probably was
deepest
worse.
roster this summer, to be perfectly honest, because
Yeah.
of the writers and actor strikes. Like each of this entire year. I mean, this summer was definitely better than the winter spring draft or pool of movies to choose from, but and the fall was better than the summer, I would probably say. But 2020, hopefully 2025 gives us better options where we're not drafting things like Borderlands.
Yeah,
But
no,
all right,
I think it seems like it should, unless something disastrous happens. Um,
fingers crossed that does not happen.
yeah, like the world ends. But I mean, outside of that, I mean, these movies are pretty much done at this point, right?
Yeah, it seems that way.
Anyway, that leads us to our last not ranked movie. I picked this one, Harold and the Purple Crayon, made a whopping 18 million, and I picked this with my 17th pick in the draft. Uh, I don't know. The movie looked horrible in the trailer, and
It was fun to
I don't
make
know.
fun of this movie.
I was hoping like families. There wasn't a ton of family movies out this summer, and I was hoping that maybe they were desperate to see this movie or see a
Yeah,
movie. Um,
didn't help that
and
it looked so familiar, so similar to If.
yeah, that definitely didn't help. I think
Levi doesn't help.
he's not, despite like Shazam doing okay. Like I don't know, people don't seem to really love him as a
Yeah,
lead. And then yeah, I don't know. I thought the book, people like the book. I don't know. There was IP behind it, but
yeah.
yeah, no, this was
You know, a
this was
lot
a
of book
trash pick.
readers of Harold and Purple Crayons gauge their reactions to what they were thinking.
Yeah, no, I knew like this was probably a bad idea, but I don't know. I thought this
We
could be
all
it.
have bad picks, but you want to go get into the top 25 right now and let
Yeah,
us know
let's
what
do
film
it.
that was.
So number 25 here was the movie Tarot. Grossed $19 million. Nobody picked it. Um, I don't know. I'm surprised a little bit that Corey didn't pick it because it's horror.
That was the only I was that when we said that we were only gonna like bring up something like if we really had something to say, that was what I was gonna say.
Yeah, but that's all I have to say. Neither one of us saw it.
Yeah, now just looked like a generic, very generic horror movie, and it just kicked off the summer. There was really nothing out in May, so
Yeah,
it was able to muster up $19 million. So with the 24th pick, I took The Watchers. It only grossed $19 million, which was what Tarot grossed, but just slightly more than Tarot. I did pick it with the 24th pick, so it was like kind of right on target with what I projected. Um, my logic behind drafting it was part of the M Night Shyamalan brand. So if you're going to draft a horror movie, want to not do um, something that has a brand in horror behind it. Um, I unfortunately didn't get the official M Night Shyamalan movie of the summer, which we'll get to later, but I took the next best thing, which was his daughter's movie.
yeah, yeah. I get why like the last name maybe you could see that it's related in a way, but yeah, clearly audiences don't extend the M Night Shyamalan love to his daughter, or at least not to the extent of
Yeah,
M Night.
at
So
least not yet.
not yeah. And I think this was her first movie.
It was. Yeah, I think she
So
directed some TV episodes of Servant, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
yeah, that's probably true because that's his show.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that takes us to number 23, Fly Me to the Moon. That made $21 million, and nobody picked it. Um, this was a Apple release movie,
Yes.
which hadn't had a really great track record up until this point. Killers of the Flower Moon, The Irishman. No, The Irishman was Netflix. Killers of the
Yeah.
Flower Moon, Napoleon,
Argyle.
Argyle was probably the worst example of that, where
Yeah.
that movie made nothing. But yeah, the track record up until this point wasn't great. So I know that's why I didn't take it. I suspect that's probably why part of the reason why you
That's
stayed
why
away.
I stood away from it as well. Likely why Corey did as well. I mean, this was the movie that once it was released and didn't do well, they took Wolf's off the like theatrical schedule for September and said we're basically just putting our movies on streaming moving forward, with the exception of like one or two a year. F1 being the next one we know that they're putting out next summer, with Brad Pitt. But yeah, it was. I think this was like the fourth in a row after the three that you mentioned that made them do it. So, I mean, again, only made $21 million, so you're only looking at $12 million gap between that and The Crow. So it's not that big a deal that none of us picked it. None of these
Yeah.
movies were really breaking the bank yet, but yeah, this was a big movie ultimately in the history of Apple and film distribution. But it was largely will be irrelevant in cinema history outside of that fact. Next up, we've got at number 22, The Bike Riders. This grossed $22 million, coincidentally. It was not picked by any of us. This was one of them that I had drafted in the fall. And then based on my poor draft strategy, my really, really poor draft strategy in the second half of this draft, I didn't end up taking it. I had also gotten burned by drafting Ordinary Angels multiple times in the fall 2023 draft and then the winter spring 2024 one. So I didn't necessarily want to do the same thing again with the Bike Riders, although I should have. The movie was a very well made movie, very entertaining. Austin Butler, Jodie Comer, Tom Hardy, etc. And I mean, it did actually make it to the top 25, top 24 of the summer. However, you want to look at it for based on this recap versus the amount of picks we have in the draft for the pool. But I should have taken it.
Yeah, you're definitely still salty from when you had drafted it before. And you had drafted it, I thought, fairly high the last time.
It was definitely in the back half, but yeah, it might have been higher in the back half.
On the back half, yeah. So that also,
yeah, I mean, it was a result of all the delays because of the writers and actors strike. So
yeah,
and we all know how that draft went.
Yeah, I won.
You did because you had the ball.
Timothy,
you picked all the movies that we thought were going to get pushed to the following year. So Timmy got you your win with Wonka.
High risk, high reward that draft for sure.
Yeah.
The next movie that ranked number 21 was Blink Twice. Made $23 million. Murph, you picked it with the 19th pick.
Yeah.
Not too far off of where it ultimately landed. I don't even remember with this movie other than I know it was a horror movie.
I was Zoe Kravitz's directorial
drama, horror.
It was like a thriller.
Thriller, okay.
Like that would, psychological thriller would probably be the way I would describe it. Some horror elements, some comedic elements. It was with Channing Tatum. It was, I mean, honestly, it's more notable for after the fact for it being the movie that we were going to see the same day we recorded our last episode, than for any being memorable as a film itself or for why I drafted it. But that's what's going to stick with me is the fact that we were going to see it the same day as when we did our last episode with Corey later that evening. So, but I mean, as for the movie itself, it was actually like pretty good. Only grossed 23 million, and so nothing special. And I got it pretty late. Draft picked at the 19th, ended up 21st. So
Channing Tatum didn't do great. I just noticed he had Fly Me to the. He was in co-lead in Fly Me to the Moon and to Blink Twice, and they both.
That is a good observation. I think he has one other film in the this summer that we'll get to later on that did perform.
It took me a second to realize what you were talking about.
Yeah,
you're right.
but we'll
not
get to that
as
one. Get to that one
not as much
later.
in the forefront, but yeah, he's
No, he
definitely
wasn't very prominent in the marketing, but yeah, he did have one hit um, that worked out for him this summer. All right, next up we've got at number 20, Horizon: An American Saga, Chapter One. It grossed 29 million. I picked this with number 13. So this is when my draft started going to shit. Was all the way here when I went really high on Kevin Costner's attempt at a saga. When he left uh, his TV show, what's the cowboy shit? The
oh, Yellowstone.
Yellowstone. He left Yellowstone to make these movies. I thought the Yellowstone audience would move with him. They did not. And yeah, we all know how that ended up turning out based on how we started talking about this draft. So,
Yeah,
oh well. It was ultimately a worse pick for me. The 29 million that I got drafting it at 13, than the 0 million that you got drafting part two or chapter two with your 23rd pick, with the 23rd pick in the draft.
yeah.
10 picks later.
Which is
So
what kind of it was part of the reason was I felt like there was more value towards the back half.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, that brings us to number 19, The Forge. Made $29 million, and it was not picked. I had to look this movie up. I didn't even remember that this
that's
movie existed.
that's
Um,
fair.
and I still have no idea what it's about, other than there's a sword in the poster. Um, yeah, that's
Um,
all I got.
I
I don't know anything about it.
yeah, was it a Fathom?
Oh, it's a
No,
religious movie.
wasn't a Fathom release. Okay, yeah, it was a Christian drama.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, that
they
it was
work it.
not
They
on my
pan out
radar.
every once in a while when people draft them, but none of
Yeah,
us did.
yeah, probably because I was just like I had never even heard of it. Forgot. I don't know. I don't even know if I remember this movie existing. But
Yeah.
anyway,
All right, number 18. We've got Reagan. Gross 30 million. This was another one that none of us picked. Um, yeah, this was going for the red state, flyover states, conservative audience, biopic of the president. Not supposed to be a good biopic. Um, it was something that was like on my radar as like maybe this could find an audience for an underserved market. Where based on the types of movies I did pick, I should have taken it later in the draft, but I didn't. Uh, don't really have
yeah.
much else to say about the film.
I mean, that is the only other notable thing I think of, and I still haven't seen this movie, but Dennis Quaid played Ronald Reagan, which I think was
Yep.
actually a pretty good choice. Um, but he's not a draw
No.
anymore. At least I don't think he is. So it
No,
really was just
he's definitely not a draw.
the topic. I think his son now is probably a bigger draw for movies at this point, or at least he's in more
Yeah.
movies.
Yes. It would go probably at Jack Quaid, Dennis Quaid, Meg Ryan, Randy Quaid among the Quaid
The Quaid
family.
family.
Yeah. Um, and if you throw in the cheating with Russell Crowe, I guess you can throw Russell Crowe in probably below Jack Quaid, slightly below Jack Quaid, but above Dennis Quaid.
Yeah, I think that's
Um,
right.
yeah.
All right. Well, that takes us to number 17, our number 17 movie. That was Coraline, which made $34 million. No one picked it. Coraline was a re-release. So,
The re-release Corey should have taken.
so there was a re-release on here that did make money. Um, and yeah, if Corey had picked this, he probably would have looked like a genius.
Oh,
If
he
he
would
at
have.
least
I
if,
mean, this was a Fathom event. This wasn't supposed to be a movie that grossed $34 million. Um, it was pretty shocking. The fact that they just kept extending its run based on just the demand being there, but they kept having to add showtimes. Um, it was shocking, quite frank. Probably the
Yeah,
biggest surprise of the summer for me.
yeah. I still haven't seen the movie. I had talked about, I think on our draft day that I was, or either on the episode or after the episode that I
Yeah,
was
the
going to
last
get tickets to
episode
see
we
it.
did, I think you had talked about potentially seeing it that evening when we had talked
Yeah,
about how we were seeing Blink twice. Um,
yeah.
but it did get
So that's
re-released in. We should have had a. I don't know if this should have given us an indication or it was re-released in 2023 and grossed $7 million. Um, so like, did did we think that it was going to suddenly the following year it was suddenly going to become like gross so much more? I don't think so. Um,
yeah.
like it was similar. It was a Fathom event. I think that one was that one. No, this wasn't technically this was the 15th anniversary of the 2024 release. But really, otherwise they were exactly the same. It was the same remaster in 3D. Um, the only thing different was this one had like being able to promote an anniversary around it. But it still blows my mind how much
Yeah.
money it.
Yeah, it's very shocking. But yeah, maybe one day I'll see it.
Yeah, probably be re-released again next year, based on how much it
Yeah.
made this year.
Yeah, based on how much money it made, why not?
Yeah. So next we have at number 16, The Strangers, Chapter 1, $35 million. Corey picked this at number 16, so right on target. Um, I just went Star Wars there. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was a smart pick. He went with a horror franchise, like known IP. Um, came out in May when there, again, like there weren't as many guaranteed hits as later in the summer. Um, IP and horror is big, just like IP is big in every other genre. Um, so it was a smart pick. Chapter 2 should have come out by now, but they had filmed chapters 1, 2, and 3 simultaneously.
Okay.
And they were originally all supposed to come out this year, and then it became like chapter 2 would come out in the fall and chapter 3 would come out in 2025. Um, now when we're
They
saying this year,
probably
I'm not sure which year we're talking about, but they were all supposed to come out 2024. Now chapter 2, like they put out a teaser saying is coming soon. Don't know when in 2025, but I imagine 2 and 3 will both come out this year because Lionsgate, they need to actually put out some hits. This was Lionsgate's only hit of the summer.
yeah.
If I'm not
Maybe they
mistaken,
saw what happened with Horizon and they were like, let's maybe space
put
things
some
out a little bit
space.
more.
That makes sense. Um,
But who knows?
Yeah, I mean this first one was basically a remake of the first movie. It's really like the upcoming chapters where they're kind of going off in their own direction. So I'm interested to see where the trilogy goes. Um, having seen chapter 1, so I'm excited to actually like find a release date for this one.
Nice. Well, that brings us to the number 15th movie of the summer, which was Trap, which made $43 million. I picked it with the 14th overall pick. So kind of right where
Yeah, good
it kind
pick.
of performed right where I picked it. This
I
was an
think we
M
would
Night
have.
Shyamalan movie.
I think we would have hoped they would have made more. Um,
Yeah, I
both
definitely
of
saw
us.
this as like, yeah, I definitely would have. I thought that this movie would have made more or had the potential at least to make more if it was good.
Yeah,
Um,
like
the potential
I
of,
was upset when I couldn't get it.
yeah, I thought maybe in the $100 million range was definitely a possibility, 80 to 100. Um, the movie didn't do critically well. I still haven't seen it, but M Night Shyamalan movie, um, and I think the probably the critics reviews deterred people from seeing this movie. If I had to
Yeah, he
guess,
just has to just stay away from critics. Like, just don't screen him for him, because they don't do him any help. The
yeah,
movie is dumb fun. That's really all. Like, if you go into it expecting like The Sixth Sense, you're gonna hate it. If you go into it expecting some cheese and just like overall like some corniness and stuff like that, then you'll have fun. You should have some fun with it. You probably maybe you won't enjoy the like 50 endings that the movie has, because it gives like Return of the King a run for its money and how
Oh,
many
great.
like
Yeah, I love
endings
that.
yeah, that you think it's gonna have. Like it gets ridiculous, um, but
You
it
could
was an
choose your own
enjoyable
ending.
movie. Yeah, exactly. But it was like this and Smile too. I thought we're sort of gonna bank off of the concerts being so like epic post COVID and like
Mm.
how that marketplace has been and like the tours that you hear about, whether it's like the Eras tour or whoever it may be, that is just like blowing up and things are selling out immediately. I kind of thought them like these horror movies leaning into concerts and pop stars would have um, had more of an impact, especially with well, in Smile's case, it being part of a franchise, and in Trap's case, being part of like the M Night Shyamalan brand, because he has a devoted audience at this point. But it
Yeah.
did make more than Knock at the Cabin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Not
it was
much,
by 10
much
million
more.
or.
I think it's like 5 million, but
Okay, yeah, it's not a ton more.
yeah, yeah.
Thought it was in the 30s, Knock at the Cabin.
Knock at the Cabin was in the 30s. It was 35, so it was
Yeah.
closer than I was. It was close to 10 million. Next up, we've got this was the unfortunate pick of the summer um, for Corey. It was Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. So I talked about how being disappointed about Trap making 43 million. I do not think any of us thought prior to this draft that Furiosa was only going to gross 67 million. So Corey drafting it, picking it in what's essentially the first round because he had the
The wraparound.
wraparound picks. Um, his picks 3 and 4 were well, we knew what he was going to pick three. I think based on what you and I picked 1 and 2. So 4 was kind of his. This was very much his second pick. Um, so it was
I
kind
mean,
of
yeah,
it was going to be a
I don't,
surprise what he picked. Um,
I don't know about you, but I probably would have taken it there too.
I was not going
Furiosa.
to.
Okay.
Um, the reason being, I mean, I thought it was going to make like $100 million. But I did not. I saw multiple movies. A lot of other movies that we drafted were higher for me. I saw this being around like 8. Um, I, I don't want to talk about the movies that did gross more than it, but I had
Yeah.
it around like probably around 8 in my pre-draft rankings. And the reason being like Mad Max, like Fury Road, huge movie, like masterpiece, like cult movie, but it only made like 140 something $1 million, I believe. Um,
Yeah, it says like total domestic is 153.
153. Okay. Now you're waiting 9 years later for the follow up. It's a prequel. It's starring not the title character, and it's a different actress playing that character. Charlize Theron was iconic as Furiosa, so now you're throwing someone Anya Taylor Joy in, great actress, but it's kind of similar to like Solo. You're putting a younger actor into like an iconic actor's performance. Not that Furiosa is as iconic as Han Solo, but there were a lot of things that just seemed a little suspect. The biggest thing also was the trailers and how I was like, why does this movie look uglier than a movie from 9 years ago? Why does this look like it has so much CGI
Yeah.
compared to Fury Road, which was like 100 looked 100% practical and looked just like so much nicer in 2015. So I had a bunch of question marks about the movie, but
But it could have
it
very well, I mean,
yeah,
sequels, especially something like this where it's got a beloved first one and there's an anticipated sequel to it, wouldn't have been crazy if it made 200, $300 million. I mean,
I would have been personally shocked. Um, I mean, we'd have to go back to what like we talked about at the time about its gross,
yeah.
but I was very surprised when Corey picked this with the fourth pick. I was happy because then that left. Well, I mean, there was very much a movie that I wanted, which I did get, um, because you passed on it as well, and it did end up being the fourth biggest movie of the summer.
Yeah,
Um, so we'll hold off on the spoilers till we get to that later
yeah,
on. But I will say for Furiosa, I did see the movie. I was disappointed my first time seeing it. As Doug knows, if I'm tired and I have high expectations for a movie, those two things combined is like a recipe for me to like hate the movie,
yeah,
and give very, very bad feedback to people. I saw it a second time with my expectations in check, not expecting Fury Road, not having watched Fury Road again the night before, and being wide awake. And I enjoyed the film much more the second time. It should have made a lot more than
yeah.
60
67 is just,
$67 million. Like,
but it's sad.
I
Yeah,
mean, if you remember, like the alarms were sounding like what is going on at the box office right now, like that this is doing so bad. Like it was the lowest
yeah,
Memorial Day weekend since like the mid '90s. Um, it was the this movie doing what it did was like it was shocking, but it sucks because we're
yeah,
probably not going to get another Mad Max movie now. So it sucks for multiple reasons. It sucks for a lot of reasons.
yep. I agree.
Um, but all right, you want to get into 13, which is another shocker.
Yeah, 13 is a shocker for another reason. Long legs made $74 million. Nobody in this draft picked it. I didn't even really hear anything about this movie until like it released, and then it seemed like that's all everybody was talking about. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know like the reason why this movie got a lot of attention. I haven't seen it, so I can't judge the movie um, based on its quality. But yeah, this movie didn't stand out to me, and then it kind of was like all the talk when it came out.
yeah. I mean, it was prior to our draft. It already had some very clever marketing, very quick teasers, not really showing much, not showing Nicolas Cage at all, despite his name being a major part of the marketing. Um, it was on my radar as like one of like I don't know, one of after whatever the last movie I took, it was like I maybe should have taken that. In retrospect, like right after the draft, I was like I should have taken this where I took Maxine or like Blink Twice, um, as my horror movie because I did take a couple horror movies or horror adjacent movies, and
Yeah.
this one just seemed like it had buzz around it. It did end up being Neon's highest grossing film ever domestically, which is wild. It was a wholly original film, which I believe it's the highest, yeah, non-IP movie. No, second highest non-IP movie on um of the summer. But man, did we whiff it? All three of us not picking this one. I'm surprised. Me, I know I'm surprised I didn't pick it in retrospect, but I'm really surprised Corey didn't pick it because of his love for horror, and I think he was already anticipating this movie, if I'm not mistaken, because of
Hmm.
the little clever teaser trailers they've been putting out. The buzz was there, the awareness was there, the cinephile community, the horror community. Um, we one of us should have drafted it. That was a major faux pas on all our parts.
Yeah.
As for the movie itself, incredibly overrated. Um, didn't live up to the hype, in my opinion.
Okay.
Do you see it?
Well, no, I said earlier I hadn't seen it. I
Oh,
just,
you said you hadn't seen it. Okay.
yeah, it's just not something that interests me. I still haven't seen not Fury, the Mad Max movie, Furiosa, which is on Max. So
Yeah,
there's no
you
reason
can
why I
watch
shouldn't
that.
see it,
Yeah.
other than I think your cranky review made me not excited about it
I
after I was
do. I
excited for
do
it.
always make sure to give you a follow up when I see a movie a second time and let you know when my opinions change or if they stay the same. Because there's plenty of there's other movies on here where my opinions did change on a second viewing, whether it was because I anticipated it too much and that negatively impacted it, or I was tired, or the double whammy in Furiosa's case of both those things.
Yeah.
But all right, I'd be interested in you eventually seeing Long Legs, and because I mean, clearly I'm in the minority.
Yeah, I'll see it at some point.
So number 12, the Garfield movie, I picked at number 12. So it's one of those funny cases that you've heard a couple times already, where the movie is actually picked at the spot it ends up ranking. It grossed $92 million. So I was happy with this. This was like one of those like last movies I felt like uh, comfortable or confident about that it would make a decent amount of money. So when it did fall to me, I was happy that it was still there, because if it wasn't there, I wouldn't have known what to pick. There is stuff that in retrospect, would have worked out better for me, but I'll take the 92 million I got from the Garfield movie. It made more than the live action ones back in the 2000s. Um, I think the original Bill Murray one made about 80 something million. 75 million.
And this was
Um,
I had to remember. I was like, is this wasn't Chris Pratt the voice of Garfield?
of course he was. He's the voice of every animated icon you could ever think of.
But it's not like
Uh,
he like changes his voice. It's just like Chris Pratt's voice.
yeah, it's just Chris Pratt's
um,
voice.
yeah. So continuing his being an animated lead character of iconic lead character. And I think I don't know if we debated this or not. Garfield may be Italian based on his love of lasagna. So could
He's
have.
he's an Italian cat. Although his father was played by Samuel L. Jackson in the movie.
Oh, really?
So I don't know what exactly Garfield is. I
Okay.
don't know if cats technically have ethnicities. Um,
If he
or
does, though, he's clearly Italian based on
yes,
his love
based
of
on
lasagna.
his passion for lasagna. Um, he's a
So,
misanthrope. He does hate Mondays. Um, but yeah, neither of us saw this movie, so I don't think we have
yeah,
anything else
no,
to add to it.
no, yeah, I'm not surprised it made 92, and thought it was a good pick at the time. I still think it was obviously a good pick because you got it, you were right on the money.
Yeah,
Um, all right, that brings us to 11 overall, which was The Fall Guy, which made $93 million, and Corey picked it with his 10th or with the 10th pick in the draft. I think this was a good pick. I was actually
it was a
scared
good pick.
of the fact that he took this
Yeah, me
and
too.
got this where he did because I thought I still think it underperformed based on where it should have been. The marketing was fantastic. They marketed the hell out of this movie, and I thought it was a really good movie when I saw it. So I was a little surprised it only made 93 million because I think it had potential to make a lot more. Not really sure what like held it back, but I don't know if it wasn't like enough star power. Uh, I don't know if
Yeah. I mean, it was that crappy month of May that just didn't perform. April, what March and the beginning of April had a ton of hits where this trailer was attached to them. It was attached to a lot of movies. But like you had Dune Part 2, Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, Godzilla, X Kong, The New Kingdom. Um, I keep forgetting what that title was. Um, no, that was The New Empire. Was it Frozen? Was Ghostbusters Frozen Kingdom?
Frozen Kingdom was Ghostbusters.
No, it's Frozen Empire. It's
Oh, yeah.
two movies had Empire in the title right around one another. But there were a lot of movies in March and the beginning of April, and then just like nothing in April after those movies. And this ended up being the kickoff movie for the summer. It wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be Deadpool and Wolverine, but that got pushed back because of the strikes to July. Where in May just did not perform up to par because of the way movies were just being released and then not being released, and then a bunch would come out and then a bunch wouldn't come out. Um,
Do you think though if they had, not saying like Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt aren't like stars, they are, but do you think if it had a cast that of two actors that were bigger box office draws that this movie would have made more?
um, no, I don't know who you could have subbed in that just automatically would have been like no. Uh, Sorry to just have like kind of a one word answer, but
No,
I
because
think
I was just thinking about
Ryan
Ryan Gosling
Gosling
and
killed
Emily
it with.
Blunt, and neither one of them seemed to like open movies.
But Ryan Gosling was coming off Barbie.
Barbie,
Emily Blunt's like she has a lot of success at the box office, whether it's A Quiet Place, Oppenheimer. She's not necessarily like the reason why people go see these movies, but she's in a lot of hit movies. Um, so I don't know. I thought they were a very marketable
yeah,
like
they were marketable.
couple to headline a movie. Um, like they had good promo together at the Oscars, where they were jabbing each other about Barbenheimer, um,
Yep.
and then the fact that they were doing the Fall Guy together. I thought they promoted the movie well. Maybe they went too heavily, like focusing on like how the movie was like a love letter to stunts, and should have put more of their emphasis elsewhere. The movie also did. It looked like they gave a lot of the movie away, but it didn't really. Um, like I was so convinced I like knew exactly where the movie was because it seemed like it was showing beat for beat. And Corey saw it before I caught it. And sorry, did you see this yet?
Yeah, I saw Fall Guy. It was
You
good.
saw it also. Okay, I can't remember if you saw it before me or not. But he was like, "Yeah, this movie like isn't what you're expecting." I'm like, "Come on, Corey, don't bullshit me." Like the movie, like it spells out the entire trailer. There's like a 3 minute, 3.5 minute trailer. I know beat for beat what's happening to happen in this movie, and it was very different. And it was very different than what I was expecting. So maybe part of it was the marketing. Um, I don't know. I was
Yeah.
pissed before he got it because it was so close to potentially have fallen for me. There were two movies that I wanted to fall for me when he took this, and he ended up taking one, and you took the other right after him. So um, I think it should have. I think it deserved to make more than $93 million, but that's just where the cookie crumbled. Alrighty, we're entering our top 10. Alien Romulus at number 10. Grossed $105 million. Corey picked us at number 9. So again, pretty much right on target for Corey with his two picks. At when he had 9 and 10, and they ended up being 10 and 11. Romulus did basically what I think we all thought it would. Would it flirt with 100 million, or would it make a little bit more than a 100 million? It was a quality movie that it made over 100 million. It was what people wanted out of Prometheus, I think, a throwback alien movie. If you an Alien
Yep.
Covenant, if those two movies didn't exist, I think this movie would have made a lot more than a 105 million. Um, so I think the future of this franchise has life in it, especially if you have Rain return now that you have another likable protagonist. Um, but yeah, this was another one where I went in with super high expectations and was disappointed. And unfortunately, I never got to tell Corey that I did enjoy it a lot more on my second viewing. He was very high on this movie, having seen it. Um, this was the last movie he did see in theaters before he passed away, and part of me was bummed that I didn't like wait and see it with him, because he did end up seeing this one like by himself because everyone else just went at random times. Um, but then I'm also glad I didn't see it with him because I didn't. I would have ended the movie being very negative, and that's not what he needed when he enjoyed the movie. Um, so I am glad he got that to have before he brought it up to us in text, and I'm just like, no, I disagree. Um, and
Yeah, I
eventually backtracked. You talk about your
I,
feelings
ca-
about the movie.
yeah, I was a little higher on it than you
Yeah,
were. I didn't love it to the extent that Corey loved it, but I was like, oh, it was a
yeah,
good movie. Um, so I was kind of in between you two at the time. Probably more where you are right now, where I don't
yeah,
think you're still not like that was the greatest alien thing ever, but
yes,
you
correct.
enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Uh, well, that takes us, now that we're in the top 10, to the number ninth overall movie of the summer. The movie If, which grossed $111 million. And I picked it at 11. Um, so lots of, I don't know, there's something
a
about
lot of
11.
number things with this draft.
Yeah. If I think I was hoping for a little bit more just because John Krasinski wrote it, and Quiet Place did so well, but I mean it's so not the same genre. Um, Ryan Reynolds was also in it. You know, he also had Deadpool and Wolverine coming out, which was going to be a huge movie. So I don't know. I just thought maybe it could have performed a little bit better because it's geared at families. But admittedly, I thought the trailer was didn't do anything for me. Live action mixed with CGI is kind of iffy, although Sonic seems to do okay with it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not surprised that where this performed. I think obviously I was hoping for more. I was hoping for this to be kind of like a runaway hit, and it was not.
Yeah, this was the movie where I had said Long Legs was the biggest non-IP movie of the summer, but it was in fact If. Um, I've realized and backtracked when talking about Long Legs. Um, this was the other movie that when Corey picked Fall Guy, I was hoping either Fall Guy or If would fall to me. Um, and it really did seem like this special. It seemed like If was going to fall to me because I don't think you were like 100% on board with it, if I remember correctly,
Yeah, I wasn't.
when you drafted it. But I was definitely more bullish on the movie than you were. So I was a little surprised when it did end up only making 111. Not to beat a dead horse, but I mean, um, this came out in May when everything wasn't making what it seemed like it should have made. Um, we go back to Fall Guy, Furiosa. This was, I guess, the would have been like the big three of May. Whereas those two
Yeah.
and If ended up grossing the most. Or wait, hold on, just my dumbass. No, there was another movie in May. We'll talk about it. Made more, and um, we'll get to that. So there's four movies. One actually really panned out, but yeah, if it didn't have, the marketing was very misleading on this one. I did see it. It was not a movie that they were marketing at all, um, and like it was a downer.
Well, that didn't help.
It didn't. No. If it was the movie that they advertised, maybe it would have had better legs. Although I think it did have like respectable legs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it
Uh,
didn't. I remember like it didn't open super well.
yeah, that and Fall Guy
So
didn't open super well,
yeah, but kind of just
but it
continued
held.
to make it held like a kids movie or like a family movie.
Yeah, like I see it drop. Its second week at 52%, but then it went 34%, 25%. Um,
Yeah,
so it wasn't like Furiosa where it dropped hard and then just continued to drop hard. It was more like Fall Guy when it came to its legs. But yeah, the fact that it wasn't the what it like wasn't the type of movie that it was marketing itself as was where I wasn't surprised with what it ended up grossing in the long run. Number eight, A Quiet Place Day One, gross 139 million. I picked this at the number seven spot. Was happy when it fell to me. I drafted Quiet Place Part 2 in our first ever draft back in the summer of 2021 when everything was on fire. And we didn't know what to expect from the box office. But yeah, I mean, it's a reliable franchise. This is the lowest grossing, and it was a spinoff, prequel slash spinoff. Um, so the fact that it grossed 139 million to the first two, which I think maxed out at 180 something, if I'm not mistaken. Quiet Place was 188, and A Quiet Place Part 2 was
Twos,
160.
right? Oh,
Was 160, but again, that was like the kickoff movie of the summer of 2021. Um, so when things were just getting back to normal, I'm putting quotations as far as the box office, and normal wouldn't come for a long time. Um,
yeah.
I think we were only just started hitting normal this summer because then we had the writers and actors strikes. But yeah, I was happy with getting it. There are two movies above that I was surprised grossed more. One is the pick of the draft, in my opinion, and the other one was the movie in May that I alluded to. That was it. It surprised me with how much it made. Um, but
Yeah, I mean, this,
yeah,
yeah. It's kind of funny that the Krasinski, I mean, this is a John Krasinski based property. Yeah, he didn't write this movie, but it's kind of
yep,
funny that the two of them were close together with If,
yeah,
the one that he did write, and then A Quiet Place Day One, based on, um,
yeah. And I think he came up with the story for this one. He got a story credit along with the writer of the film.
yeah. So I just kind of think that's humorous that they're so close.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, that takes us to number seven overall for the summer. This is what Murph was, I'm assuming, alluding to with the steal of the draft.
Yeah, not even steal
Where,
the draft, just the pick of the draft. I would say.
yeah, this movie was It Ends With Us. It made $149 million, and I picked it at 20. Um, so I got it pretty late
Got it very
in the draft.
late.
But there was a lot of question marks with this movie.
Yeah.
Like,
What was this movie?
right, what is this movie? Which, after the movie came out, that wound up being a big controversy of the trailers maybe being misleading what the actual movie was about. Starred Blake Lively, which I thought had going for it, based on a book that was very popular, which I thought had going for it.
That was your big reason for drafting it, and it was a genius pick. This is one of the best picks in any of our drafts.
Yes, but it was very risky, and it could have easily been a Harold and Purple Crayon situation all
Yeah.
over again. I got kind of lucky with this. I did not expect it to make this. I knew it had potential to maybe make closer to $100 million. I would have. I think we all were shocked that it made not only hit 100 million, but actually made 100, 50 million over that. So, um, yeah, I mean, it was.
Yeah.
I got very lucky with this one. It
It wasn't
was,
luck, man.
yeah,
You picked it. You
yeah,
picked it at a good point, and it just far exceeded expectations.
yeah. So I was very happy with the way this one performed, and
I
it
remember
makes me
you talking
looks
about
like a
it
genius after the fact.
in the winter or spring draft. I remember it was on the list of movies, and I think you had tell me to pull it. It had just gotten pushed back to summer,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. So like it was on your radar way back when.
Yep. Yeah, I was definitely happy with the way this one did.
Yeah, but if it wasn't the pick of the draft, it was certainly the steal of the draft, and maybe the steal of any draft we've done so far. Um, but
Yeah, I agree.
number six, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, grossed $171 million. Doug, you picked at number eight. This was the movie from May that actually really did exceed expectations. I did not expect the reboot. Nah, it's a reboot in a sense, like that it takes place nearly 200 years after the Caesar trilogy.
Yeah.
Um, of Planet of the Apes, but it does follow that storyline. I wasn't expecting it to do similar numbers to Rise of the Planet of the Apes and Dawn of the Planet of the or Rise and War for the Planet of the Apes. It didn't make nearly as much as Dawn did, um, but I believe it made um, right around those two, which was very surprising. So yeah, Rise of the Planet of the Apes grossed 176, and War for the Planet of the Apes grossed 146. So I was expecting something more in the 140, like 120 to 140s, if I remember correctly, what I was thinking at the time. Um, so when you got it at number 8, and I picked A Quiet Place Day 1 at number 7, um, I was kind of expecting them to fall 7 and 8 as far as box office went, the other way around. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it ended up being 8 for Quiet Place and 6 for Kingdom, because It Ends With Us came out of nowhere and plopped in at number 7.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think it was a solid movie. I definitely get your concerns with it, and I had similar concerns. I think I just the IP and the trailers look, I think, pretty good if I recall correctly.
Yeah, trailers look decent, but the IP's there. Now we know. Planet of the Apes is like, as long as the effects are there, it's pretty much a lock to make a decent amount of money.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Godzilla and Kong at this point. They're kind of like gonna make money if you put like if you have that gimmick. They're gonna make a certain amount of money. So, all right.
Yeah. I agree.
Uh,
Well, that takes us to the
yeah,
number five
number 5.
movie of the summer. This was Bad Boys Ride or Die. Made $194 million. I picked it with the fifth pick, and it performed right at 5. So I was pretty on the money
Right
with
on
this one.
target. Yep.
Yeah. I was worried about this one. I think you were a little bit too, and whether or not the Bad Boys movies still had enough in the tank,
Yeah.
especially
Post slap.
because yeah, Will Smith was a question mark post slap, and then the Bad Boys movie right before this, which was what, For Life,
My Boys for Life. Yeah, had 17 years of pent up demand. This set
right?
4.
Yeah, so there wasn't as big of a gap, even though Bad Boys for Life, which was the reason I drafted this so high, did very well at the box office.
Yeah, I mean it grossed only like 10 million more than this one did.
Yeah, 206 million for
Yeah.
Bad Boys for Life. So, um, yeah, people still love these movies. They're just fun movies. People like the Martin Lawrence, Will Smith dynamic, and obviously the slap isn't making audiences turn away from Will Smith. At least not when he's paired
If the
up in the
Yeah,
big franchise.
exactly. If you Will Smith's in the right franchise role, he's the audiences will follow. Um,
Yep.
and then yeah, this is absolute proof of that. Um, so yeah, that was a great pick. I thought you picked it a little high. Um, I was happy that you did pick it at number 5, because then I got the movie that I wanted at number 6. That I was happy that you. But I said when Furiosa was drafted, I was happy that wasn't picked. Then I was happy Bad Boys wasn't picked, because then I got to pick Twisters at number 4, which grossed 268 million. I picked this at the number 6 spot. Um, I was just high on this movie ever since the trailers. It just seemed
Yep.
like it was the type of movie that, like, throwback movie that people would just see and enjoy, whether they remembered the original or not. You had Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar Jones, two extremely likable actors, being paired up together. Um, Great effects as far as tornadoes. It's something that could appeal to audiences all throughout the country. It, while not like being like seeming it like Hollywood's like trying to cater to like the flyover states, like it's just broadly accessible. And then they really went into trying to get audiences that don't typically go to the movies by putting out like a country album and all that, and really just everything came together for it to be the biggest movie of the summer. That was not the big three that we knew. We all went in going, all right, these are going to be the number 1, 2, and 3 picks. Just we don't know what order we're going to draft them in.
Yeah.
And yeah, um, I'm
Yeah, I mean,
very happy with it, how it performed.
I also wanted Twisters. I thought it had potential. This was a little higher than I was comfortable at 5 taking it,
Mm-hmm.
just because I thought it was a little bit more of a question mark, just because it's a follow up to what was a very popular movie in the 90s.
Yeah, 28
So
years
the time gap
earlier.
is just crazy. It had brought nobody back from the original cast.
Yeah,
So there was some question marks that I had about it, but I definitely thought it had potential. Wasn't super happy that you drafted it, but it was a little higher. Like you definitely. I thought it was riskier at this spot, but obviously it was a smart pick.
I had a I had 2 picks, so it was a little different for me also. But it was one of those picks that um, I don't know. I just felt confident in this one, for whatever reason. Um, I was like,
Yeah,
this is a movie where people are just going to turn their brains off, and it's the definition of a summer popcorn movie. And I think after Top Gun Maverick, I kind of not even the Glenn Powell connection, but it just gave me similar vibes to that movie, even though it grossed like half um, of what that one did, because Maverick was a freaking phenomenon. But yeah, um, want to get into the big
yeah,
three?
yeah. So the big three, we've got number three, Despicable Me 4 made $361 million. Corey picked it with a third pick. Corey didn't have a choice at this point.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, it was the obvious one left. I would have been shocked if Corey didn't pick Despicable Me 4.
as would I. I mean, it only would have been shocking if he picked it. If he didn't pick a 3 or a 4, because
Yeah,
he had the 2 picks. So like, it would have been shocking if he did not pick it at 3 or 4.
yeah, exactly. So it was a good pick. Again, there was nothing Corey could do because I don't think he had a choice at the spot. You and I kind of dictated what his third pick was going to be.
Yeah, it actually ended up being a better pick. We're gonna go right into number 2 now. Um, so number 2 is interesting. It's Deadpool and Wolverine. It grossed $637 million. Absolute smash. Doug, you picked it with the number 2 pick. Um, but we had put a stipulation in effect prior to the draft that movie would be split in half because we saw the potential of this one. We all agreed. I'm going to say you put the most emphasis on how much potential you saw in it prior to the other 2 movies, which we all agreed were 300 million plus movies. But
Yeah,
we collectively saw the cap for, or the minimum for Deadpool and Wolverine substantially higher than the movies that went 1 and 3 ultimately. Um, so while it did gross $637 million, massive, when split to 319, Corey getting stuck with Despicable Me 4, Corey actually had the better pick
yeah,
at 361 million, which is pretty crazy, and it says a lot about how damn consistent that Despicable Me franchise is. That they're like 6 entries deep now between this and Minions, and it's leaning towards 400 million and not 300 million. And it says a lot about Deadpool and Wolverine that you got an R-rated movie that made $637 million. I mean, I did not think that was possible. that was a big reason why I did not pick it with my number one pick. Was that I just did not see the cap as high as you did because of its rating. We talked about No Way Home a lot prior to this movie coming out, and how that made 800 something $1 million, and it was built on the nostalgia and the multiverse and everything like that. We saw the multiverse bump that Doctor Strange got compared to the first one. We also saw how the multiverse didn't necessarily work for Ant-Man, but it also didn't really go into the rely on the multiverse as much as either of those two did.
Yeah.
And we've seen Spider-Man have success in multiverse twice animated, and a big jump in his second animated movie. So yeah, bringing back Hugh Jackman and putting Deadpool in the MCU, it was obviously going to be massive. I just was like, I thought it was going to be more a 400 to 500 movie than a over $600 million movie. But you drafted it, so I'll let you talk more about it.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously saw high potential in it. You know what to do with it. I know we struggled with a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't know. Looking back, and maybe we can kind of do more of a retrospective after we talk about one.
yeah, sure.
I mean, one's people probably know what one is anyway.
I
But
mean, if you do based on pure money, our one and twos were, man, they were neck in neck, and they did end up being right in the order of one and two.
yeah, I
Say
think
it. Say what the movie is. We
yeah,
might
no,
as
the
well.
number one was Inside Out 2, which made $653 million. That was your overall pick, Murph.
Yeah,
I don't know if you picked that same one if we don't have Deadpool and Wolverine. Maybe you do because you just said you didn't see it making 600 million.
I
Um,
might have taken Deadpool and Wolverine. I think I would
yeah,
have. I
yeah,
was very high on Inside Out 2, though, because of it being a Pixar sequel, and all their sequels tend to be gross more than the previous ones, and by a substantial amount if it's like a long delayed sequel. But I did not expect it to jump two times the amount of the first one.
I didn't either. I
Almost
was
two.
like, all
I think
right,
the first one made what, 350 million? So I didn't expect it to jump $300 million.
yeah. I mean, I was thinking maybe low fours if it does really well. That's kind of where I had it in my head. Is it's like it's cap.
Yeah.
Um, Best case scenario.
Yeah.
And obviously it was way off on that. This was Inside Out 2 was a complete shock for how much it made, and just kind of looking back at what the numbers were. I mean, I don't think we would have thought to have Inside Out 2, which is like the only other
We
thing
wouldn't.
you could
We,
have.
we wouldn't have thought to do
Um,
that.
and I guess in retrospect, you could say, well, maybe we shouldn't have had Deadpool and Wolverine. That would have changed the order, like we said, because you probably would have taken it first. Maybe I would have taken Inside Out 2 or Despicable Me 4. Um, but I, it's just one of those surprises that like you couldn't have seen coming. Um,
Yeah.
Kind of like Top Gun and Maverick, where it just made a boatload of money and we just couldn't predict it. Or
Hmm.
Barbie.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. This one was. I stand by our having of Deadpool and Wolverine because I think it wouldn't have been fair to Corey to get stuck with a $300 million movie when you and I could get $600 million movies.
No, and I mean, not that we know what picks we would have had.
Or
When
whoever
we came up
got
with stipulation, it was before we knew what pick number order it
right.
was or anything like that. But yeah, it wouldn't have been fair for whoever was stuck at the number three pick.
So
Because I
it's
did.
hard.
There was a clear big three, but I also think there was a clear big two at the same time. Like two, Despicable Me has like it has a ceiling. The other two, we didn't know what the ceiling was.
Yeah.
Um, just so, and they both just went well above what we thought their ceiling was, or at least in my opinion, both of them went above what their ceiling was. Do you think Deadpool and Wolverine could possibly have grossed more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, I, I thought 600 million was definitely possible. Um, I would have loved, obviously, to see it go into like 700 million. But the problem is, like, once you have it, would it, like, let's say it makes it to 700. I mean, you're just talking about 350 instead of 319. So
Yeah, I mean, you're still less than
it's
Despicable Me 4.
right. So it's still just. But yeah, I thought best case
That is
scenario.
what went into my rationale. I was like, best case
Yeah,
scenario, this movie does make no home numbers. You cut it in half, that's 400 something. Inside Out 2 has a pretty good chance of making
yeah,
$400 million. The
no,
only thing was we also were worried about Pixar not having success post pandemic
yeah,
because based on Onward coming out right when the pandemic happened, three of them going straight to Disney Plus, and then Elemental not making or Lightyear bombing, and then Elemental opening very poorly and then having legs. So we didn't. Pixar
yeah,
was unproven again. Was unproven in the pandemic era.
yeah. I still think that that was
That
like
was
the
a big
best
reason.
call. We
What another big reason why were a little wary on Inside Out 2 ceiling,
yeah.
if I remember
I so
correctly.
I think we made the right call here. We'll talk about because I want to keep this on the summer draft. But we'll talk about our um, fall draft, and we didn't make the decision to have anything, and I think that ultimately probably was the right call.
Yeah,
Um, but it's hard, based on the information we had. I still think that that was probably the right call.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. No, I'm not going to argue with it. I'd say there's ones where we should have done them. The one where No Way Home, that's the biggest one where we should have done one.
yep.
Um, I should not have won that draft, um, just from what because of one movie. That wasn't fair. Um, and then there's been ones where we did stipulations where we shouldn't have. Can you think of one off the top of your head
Where we
that it was
shouldn't have done it.
where we shouldn't have done a stipulation? Oh, I can another one where I benefited, doubling every movie, for whoever didn't get Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, or Avatar: The Way of Water. Um, Granted, had
Yeah.
you drafted a little bit better after your first pick, you would have won that draft. So maybe
Yep.
that one should have stayed. Um,
Yeah, that one might have been the right call,
but I think the one where
but
the Batman, where we did a stipulation for that one, that was acceptable. I think this one was acceptable. Um, and yeah, there's just other ones where we didn't know about Barbie, we didn't know about Top Gun Maverick, just like we didn't know Inside Out 2 was going to do these numbers. I mean, which is what makes this shit fun. Um, is
yeah.
these breakout movies? I mean, it might have ruined my Barbenheimer weekend, watching you guys just be in glory while I was like, I am so embarrassed by the movies that I drafted. Um, but hey, it is what it is.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. I mean, overall, I thought it was competitive. Obviously, once Inside Out 2 made as much money as it made, or like, I know I was. I think Corey was too. They're just like, man, we're fucked. Um,
yeah, it definitely changed the momentum because I mean things were looking just bleak in general in May, and then the box office went on fire in June. Um, with Bad Boys for or not Bad Boys for Life, but it should have been Bad Boys for Life as being Bad Boys 4. But Bad Boys Ride or Die and Inside Out really lit the box office on fire. But yeah, we'll go into 1, 2, and 3 rankings. So in bronze, in third place, we had Corey with 698 million. Just to recap his movies, he had The Fall Guy, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace re-release, The Strangers Chapter 1, Furiosa, Mad Max Saga, Despicable Me 4, Borderlands, Alien Romulus, and The Crow. You look at his 8 movies, really, I mean, just he got burnt right out the gate with Furiosa. Um, that is the biggest thing of note as in regards to his draft, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he had some missteps, but I mean, Despicable Me 4, very good pick. Alien Romulus was a very good pick. Fall Guy, very good pick. And in regards to where it ended up ranking, should even though I think that movie should have made more money, uh, and he had some missteps, as we all did with Crow and Borderlands. Strangers was a very solid pick. So yeah, um, Corey did end up in third in this one. Um, Now, where things get interesting is in the first and second, or gold and silver situation, is with you and me. Um, Going by pure dollars, if we did not do the stipulation, you would have won, um, with $1.32 billion to my $1.24 billion. Um, but and this is despite losing a film, because you did lose Horizon and American Saga Chapter 2.
Which would have made all the money.
It would have, yeah, let's say, yeah, we would have totally
Would have
made
made
it would have made the
$240 million.
247, exactly, yeah, it would have made you 250 million, and you just would have squeaked by a win. But yeah, because of the stipulation, it did drop you down to right at $1 billion. So you got second place because of that. In my opinion, you had the best draft, overall. I've said this plenty of times where you get second place, but I say you had the best draft overall. It just certain things
Yeah.
just don't go in your favor. But yeah, I mean, to
Which makes
recap,
it not the best draft, but yeah, I mean, on
yeah,
paper things have looked good for me a few
on
times.
paper, like you had Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, If, Bad Boys, Ride or Die, Deadpool and Wolverine, Harold and the Purple Crayon, Trap, and It Ends with Us, and you lost Horizon. Losing
Yep.
Horizon, not a big deal. Harold and the Purple Crayon was your only bomb. But I mean, you got a massive overperformer, in my opinion, in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, in Bad Boys, Ride or Die, in Deadpool and Wolverine. The only thing is we halved it. And then obviously It Ends with Us. And Trap underperformed slightly, but didn't do bad. So overall, it's a very, very strong draft. Um,
Yeah, no, I was happy with my draft, but yeah, I like that it was still. I mean, 240 million isn't like super super close, but it was still close enough that it made it interesting between you and I, and I think
there's not many
Fury
drafts
was
where
it.
we've had two of us make over a billion, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Yeah, I think
um,
I don't. I was thinking that as well. Usually we don't have two people that hit a billion. Usually whoever hits a billion wins. So
yeah,
this was an interesting one in that we both performed high, and then Corey just got screwed really badly.
yeah,
I mean, he didn't have the best draft, but he should have been closer to us than he was.
yes, agreed. If a couple different things fall the way that we were expecting, he would have been right there with us. It's really just
Yeah,
Furious and a Fall Guy. Um, like those two should have been got close, another 200 million between them, I would say. Um,
yep,
so it should have been closer. And then yeah, like I said, I ended up at the number one pick because of the splitting situation with Deadpool. Um, I had the Garfield movie, The Watchers, Inside Out 2, Horizon and American Saga Chapter 1, A Quiet Place Day 1, Maxine, Twisters, and Blink Twice. So, I mean, I completely whiffed my second half of the draft. I It was strictly my first four movies that got me the number one win.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So
But
like
yeah, I
that's
mean,
why I could say your draft is better than my draft.
but you are the winner of our summer 2024 draft. So
I am.
well done to you, sir.
Thank you. Wish Corey was here with us doing it with us. Like the one
Yeah,
way down the line of the things I wish Corey was still doing with us at this point in time. But
yeah.
I'm glad he was just at least still spiritually with us for this and for the fall draft. And we will get to the fall one in a couple episodes from now. All right, and that's a wrap for today. This has been Doug and Murph at Live Breathe Film, signing off.